All right, you guys, we're going to jump back in. You guys sounded like a choir when we were worshiping there, which is, I guess, you know, even those of you who are not stage ministry, we've got tech gifts and all that, and some of our band who isn't mine, you guys all sing. I think it feels like, you know, music is definitely just a part of each of us, so I'm not surprised, but it was, I love it. So I appreciate that. And appreciate your, again, your guys' coming. Those guys who didn't get her as we first started, I just thank you again for being here, for spending the time, for taking the time, so that we can see what God has for us. So, as Mark said, you know, we're going to jump right in, like, you know, no like pussyfooting into it. We're just going to jump right in. But I do want to start with a couple of thoughts. First of all, this is a little off topic, but you guys who were able to do the workshop, I literally don't do this enough I'm always disconnected. Who got to do the workshop with us that we did in Wednesdays? We did the Holy Roar, we did the book. Holy Roar. If you did not get to do that workshop with us, no biggie, there's a book. Okay, if you are interested, or if you're a reader, or if you're just looking for something new, this is a fantastic book. It talks about 7 words for praise that are used in the Bible, and kind of the position and posture of praise, and it's a challenge. A lot of us, some in our class were from either like a Pentecostal background, or they did not have some of those like hindrances that some of us who grew up more conservative or in a Baptist background or whatever have, as far as being physically present and involved in praising God. But there's biblical command. There's biblical command, and that's what I loved about the book, is it's not just somebody's opinion, some viewpoint, or some denomination. It takes the Word of God and says, hey, you know, remember the message that Mark preached from Psalms, where we did worship at the end of the day. That whole psalm is instruction, and our response is just obedience to His Word. So, it's not to look across the room and say, oh, you're not worshiping hard enough, you're not worshiping well. You know, that's not that, but for your own self, for your own heart and your own conviction. So if you are interested in a book, I thought I had 2 extra copies I was going to throw at you guys, but I don't. So I just have mine, and it's got mentions in it. So grab the book if you're interested. I think you can get it at Barnes & Noble or online anywhere. So great book, good topic, but that's a little off topic. So today we're going to jump right in. This session we're going to try to finish up here like in an hour. Like I said, we'll try to do our best to stay on track. Craig Rochelle is a pastor. Many of you probably heard of him. He has podcasts. Their church is the one who invented the Bible app, the YouVersion Bible app. That's his church's multi-site. Anyway, he's got a lot of good stuff to say. And he's got a couple of quotes I want to start with. He says, the difference between good and great is learning to anticipate rather than simply react. And another quote, he says, if we aren't changing, we're falling behind. Now, both of those quotes have kind of been rolling around in my head in the context of our worship ministry and our workshop for today. I feel like they're both applicable. And we're pretty familiar with the idea, we've heard this concept before, if you're not changing, or if you're not moving forward, you aren't just staying the same, you're actually moving back, because those around you are moving forward. So kind of by default, we're falling behind. But he has this little spin, if we're not changing, we're falling behind. Now, again, Mark made the great point that the things we're talking about aren't necessarily changes from our core values. It's just forms that are changing, but it still feels and will look like change. So we attended the Leadership Summit. Our staff went back in August, last month, feels like months ago now. And one of the examples that was kind of talked about in this idea of if you're not changing, you're falling backwards, and this guy can't pronounce his name, he talked about the Nokia phone. Do you guys remember like early 2000s, like the Nokia, like the 3310 or the 3390 or whatever, right? And they called it a brick, like that, that was the steel. Some of you guys remember like the next one that came out after, it was like the Razor. Some of you youngins remember the Razor. Some of you youngins were barely born, so you don't remember anything from 2000. But some of us remember that Nokia phone. I had one, it was red. And the tagline for that was, it is indestructible. It's an indestructible phone. If you drop your iPhone, you'll crack your screen. If you drop the Nokia brick, you'll crack the floor. Like, it was just like indestructible phone, and he kind of talked about that. And yet, the point he brought out is, where is the Nokia today? Obsolete. He said indestructible, but obsolete. It is not, it did not, the people there at Nokia were not the smart people who thought, what's ahead? Where are we going? The really smart people, I'm guessing all work at iPhone, I don't know, and they go, good enough is not good enough. We're not going to sit back here and just we're happy with what we've done, and we're going to let it be. They keep going, forever updating, right? Like the new phone, the next thing, what can we add to it? How can we improve? So that's just that anticipating what's coming and getting ahead of the curve. So, we aren't a company per se. We recognize that. And we don't work within those kind of typical business structures that we're, hiring, firing, thank God. That's, we're volunteers, we're a ministry. But I do think that there are principles that we can pull from that idea. So we want to be people who are anticipating what's next for hope. We've always wanted to be that. We value improvement over comfort. We've looked for those ways to do it. We're willing to follow the Lord's leading. Mark talked about in our core values, those 3 core values. So one is we walk by faith. That is a core value. That's our heart here. And the desire to do it. We want to do it with humility, but we also want to be bold, expectant that God will be faithful, that He will lead, that He will open doors, He will keep us on track, or He'll gently, by His grace, guide us back when we get off track. So we're trusting Him for that. We also want to keep finding ways to pass on our DNA. And here's what I mean by that. Not because we know how to do church best. I don't believe that. But we have a particular calling, and we have a responsibility for who God has brought here to Hope. So just like you do with your children, naturally, your blood children, you pass on your DNA, they look like you. We talk about Emma all the time and how crazy it is that, like, 1 minute he'll look just like Kylie. I feel like I'm looking at my baby, 25 years ago. And then literally in the next second he looks like Matt. And that goes, well, yeah, it's because we're his parents. Like, yeah, like he's very brilliant. And he's also not snotty, he doesn't use that voice. But that idea that, of course, we naturally pass on our DNA to our kids. Very much in the same way, I believe that we are called to pass on how to follow God, how to reflect Jesus, how to walk by faith, how to put people over program, how to care for people and love like Jesus into our next leaders of worship, into our next generation. So we're not going to be afraid to try new things, try hard things, okay? So jumping into the 2 hurdles, Mark called them, did you call them setbacks or negative, whatever word you used, downsides. And that's not a bad word, because I would never critique anything that Mark says. It's not a bad word, but it can sometimes make us go. So even though this is maybe a negative word too, I feel like hurdle is it's something that can be overcome. It's not insurmountable, it's not Mount Everest. It's a hurdle, and we might have to stretch a little, we might have to work out a little, but we can overcome these things. But these couple of hurdles that Mark mentioned, so we're just going to go right at it, and we're going to tackle them. One, he mentioned that some of our vocalists won't be mic'd. Okay? Our band, he mentioned, you didn't get much into the band side of it, but I'll deal with that. they're going to be doubling down on their craft. They're going to be relearning parts. They're going to be improving their skills. We'll talk about this later, but we've already been talking about that through the summer. They're going to be stretching to become better musicians, okay? Better bandmates. We're going to get into a section later, but what we'll be calling lead vocals, we'll be committing to extra preparation during the week, more responsible for knowing and learning harmonies before rehearsals, serving as part of a rotation team on what we're going to call our choir vocals. So we're going to get to that, kind of like the choir director idea, but that's coming, okay? So that's kind of that first hurdle, is a change, a shift in what we have kind of typically seen, especially if you've been here in the last year, because maybe even a year ago things weren't just like they are now. So, we're just in this kind of continual motion. The second thing was, anytime we move forward into a new thing, it can cause us to feel anxious. It can cause us to feel tension. It can cause us to feel upset stomach. It can cause us to feel insecure. Our pride can come up and jump up and get in the way. So I think most of us are naturally change averse. That tends to be. There are some, and I know some, who are like, change, yeah! Like, do you know anybody who wants to move the furniture in their house every 3 months? Oh, no, I can't. I am like, if I get a new picture that I can't wait to get at like Hobby Lobby, I get home and I think, what do I want to do with you? Because I can't stand the idea that what I currently have has to look different for a while before I get used to it, even if I love it later. So that tends to be a little bit how most of us are. And I just want to give you a side note. I mentioned insecurity. Change can cause an insecurity. And I read this, I get multiple things that I read, but this was a blog that I had read online from a worship leader, and this little paragraph, he says, let's face it, musicians are emotional people. Now I'm putting everybody in that category because we're the music ministry. Okay, so whether you're playing, I always do a fake guitar because I don't know how to play guitar, and playing or singing or running things, we tend to have that emotional side. Musicians are emotional people. We sing louder, feel stronger, and we overthink. We wonder what everyone in the crowd thinks of us, what other musicians think of us in our playing. And sometimes those thoughts replay louder than the truth. And I love this line. Insecurity is the thief of joy. It robs us of knowing who we are and keeps us from fulfilling our calling. And I thought, boy, that's just a timely reminder. As in anything, whether it's changing or not, but especially as things are changing, our insecurities come out. What does this mean about me? What does this mean about, what does this mean about the church? People, you've heard that term, oh, they're on the slippery slope. I'll be honest, we talked about the LGBTQ discussion on Wednesday night, and I had a little anxiety that this is going to go Facebook Live, and people, we had like 1,000 views or something of that. Like it was over 1,000 views. We don't have 1,000 people in our church. So then you start to go, what will people think if you hear somebody say, I'm not going to go into that theological discussion, but hear somebody say a point of view, what will they think of us as a church? Those insecurities come in and we start to get anxious about what means insecure. So I love that idea, reminder that it can steal our joy of something new that we're trying, of something God's calling us into, or like taking the leap and jumping into something. So we don't want those things to do that. So moving on, once we kind of grab a hold of the why we're looking to make these changes, that can help us into the kind of grasping all right, what's going to look like? How's it going to work? How can I get on board? And that's, despite our natural adverse change mentalities, that's what we want to do today, okay? So both of these things Mark talked about will require we check our egos at the door and leave them there forever. We have to be people who are not thin-skinned, who are not focused on me. And I mean, it's funny because Mark and I do this often. he will say something. We kind of planned this set, Kylie and I, this little bit of time to worship, and I didn't tell him what we were doing. And he didn't tell me he's reading from Revelation, and that's my favorite chapter in Revelation. And here we're singing, "We bow down, worthy is the Lamb."
Amen.
That is who we are here for. And the whole idea I know that that's the heart. I can look across this room and I know you guys. Like, we're not new friends. I know you. I know that's the heart. But the natural flesh of us gets in the way and makes us wonder, are we good enough? Are we, am I important? Am I valued? So, I feel like I'm getting off, but that idea that we don't have room, it's not big enough in here for Jesus and our egos. You know what I mean? So we have to do that. Also, it's going to require that we buy into the bigger purpose, the kingdom purpose, the core values of our fellowship, of our music ministry here at Hope. So I'm going to do my best to work on that. So let's look at the whys kind of in this first session, then we're going to take a break, and then we'll get into the how we get there, what it's going to look like, okay, before lunchtime. All right, so why are we switching it up at all? Let's go back to the quote from Craig Rochelle where he says, if we aren't changing / moving forward, we are falling behind. So if you've been around, you know, like I said, we've never been afraid to try new things. We have tried new things. All new things haven't stuck and all new things haven't worked. But some of the good forward motion, some of the good things we've done, we've been able to, we got the confidence monitor up in the back. We used to use lyric books. And so weekly, we're printing out charts, we're hole punching, we're adding to the books. And so we did something there that was workable, but this was better. This was moving us forward. So we got our words team, and they stepped up their game and got, ahead of things, knowing not only is the church relying, but now our team is relying. So that was a great shift forward. We used to have the vocals on here. Mark talked about the fire hall and Friends of Israel and back at Bob's house. Even when we came here, our vocals used to stand here because we didn't have room on stage. We had that big screen is all we had. We didn't have those guys. So we had kind of shifted and adjusted, and then we kind of, as things panned out and worked out, we found really much better to bring our vocalists up on stage, because often I was still leading, and here they are leading, but is that where we're going? Are we going to the solo? You know what I mean? There was a bit of a downside to being here. So we moved that up. We rearranged the whole stage. It's been changed multiple times, but we've rearranged that to make it better. We've tried different programs for our words ministry. We've gone from Media Shout to ProPresenter, right, Rick? Right? That's what we're using, right? There are better things that we have done. We've used colored backgrounds. We've used motion backgrounds, right? We've used the countdown things. There's a lot of things that we've done that say, hey, we don't have to just go back to the, stick with the, what were those things called? And the projector thing that you went up to the wall. Remember those when we were kids?
The overhead.
Overheads, slide projector. They worked. But there's better. There's things that we can do that, again, you young people don't know what I'm talking about. We purchased better mics. We purchased better equipment. Mark has rewired things through this attic. His favorite thing to do on a Tuesday or Thursday is go up in the attic and crawl around up there. I swear he does it all the time. But we've been rewiring things so that we have less buzz and less hissing things and all that. So we've tried to do lots of things and to make things move forward. So we haven't just stayed stuck. We have a drum, we have baffling, we have that whole thing there now. We put the guitar amp in a box. I don't know if you guys even know it if you don't play. There's a box back there behind. It's all sealed up so that the sound guys can have better control of the sound mix, throughout the room. So those are things. We've moved to in-ear monitoring with some of our vocalists in our band. We have grown out of some things that we've tried. Who was back with us at Friends of Israel? Raise your hand. There's only a couple of us here. Remember when we used to have the whole breakfast? We had a whole breakfast. Carol was like a diehard. Everybody needs to eat. That was like her heart, which is beautiful. Everybody needs to eat. She would literally put on a whole breakfast. Same thing at the fire hall for a long time. We had a whole breakfast on Sunday mornings. Bob and Carol used to host church-wide 4th of July picnics, church-wide Super Bowl party, was it 2005? I mean, we can't do that now. We have grown out of some of those things. So that, that's a natural part of growing. I remember a conversation back when we were, I think, still at the house, so like 25 or so of us, and somebody said to Mark and I just really like it here. I think we're about to move to Friends of Israel. And they said, I just really like it here. I just really wish we could just stay like this. And I get that heart that there's an intimacy, but rarely ever does God bring us here and say, I'm just going to have you stay right there. I just feel like, we've talked about it many times, if we're a light and if we're salt, right here, if we light a candle, it is not going to do anything because we got lights on, right? We got to take the candle to a dark place for it to have any effect, for it to have any change. I don't think that clearly He has moved us outside of 25 people. And I think that that's His heart. So we're outgrowing some things, and that's not bad. That's a good thing. So we've also tried things that did not work. Who remembers the overflow we used to do in the youth room? Who's here for that? We tried it. We thought, all right, we're growing out of this room. We didn't have enough chairs, I don't think, back then. And we tried an overflow, and it was funny. Because it was like 4 people be back there. Like it just didn't catch on. And we thought, okay, we gave that a run, that worked. How about Saturday night services? Who remembers the Saturday nights? We did Saturday night services. We bumped our rehearsals to make it fit. We did Saturday nights. It's not bad. Clearly God uses those things, but it started to draw people who were not hopers, which isn't bad, but they wanted to come here. Mark, they wanted to be a part here, and then they wanted to go to church on Sunday because they were already settled in a church, and that's not a bad thing, but it wasn't the vehicle we knew God was calling us to grow. And we moved into the 2 services, and so some of those things that we've tried don't work. I will not mention all the fails that didn't work because they didn't stick. It's okay. We give it a shot. You guys probably don't even remember this, but there was a time when I was making CDs. I don't know, I guess it was before Spotify. Is that how old I am? And we were trying to do thematic prelude and postlude. Does anybody remember that? I would be like, okay, this is the CD, and I would hunt down 4 good songs, and hunt down 4 good songs for closing, and that lasted about 3 times because I was like, this is too much work, to try to come up with things that would create atmosphere and create the right vibe and the right tone for the day, things with the message. So that did not work. Some of the things we've given a shot don't work.
What's a CD?
Yeah, right? What is a CD? What's a cassette? That is the truth. So we are not, we try these things, but we're not interested in change, like Mark said, for the sake of change. And I do have no stone to throw at a person who just wants to try something new. Every 3 months, it's like a new cycle. Like I said, move the furniture. That was my mom. On that topic. My mom and dad moved as it was just part of their enjoyment of life, moving, because it was the new slate. So I get that, but we are not after new for new, change for change, for change sake alone. But when change better reflects our core values, better reflects an opportunity to lead our church in worship, which is a weighty responsibility from every one of us, and it forces us to lean into a deeper relationship with Jesus, then we're willing to bite the bullet and, okay, let's see what's up, let's see what's new. We want to embrace it, change for those reasons. So that's a little of if you can get on board with kind of why some of those things that we've looked at. How does this kind of change pertain to our vocalists? Okay, so why are we thinking this way? This is not how, this is still why change, what does this do as it pertains to vocalists? One of our vocalists, band, Stanley, and that. Start with vocalists. For one, what we're looking to do will create more opportunity for more people to be more involved on any given week, throughout the quarter, more times in the quarter, like Mark said, inclusive. We used to have like 8 core values. Who remembers? Remember that big old list? Inclusive was like 1 or 2. Integrity, inclusiveness. It matters to us. Mark said it. There's not a group that you come to watch a show and those are the people who are doing the show. That's not how God designed church to function. And I think we all recognize that and know that. So it's going to create that kind of opportunity for more. Also, there has been, I think, and for me, for sure, we want to do this because we want our vocalists across the board to be more free in their worship, not hampered by keeping track of all the moving parts. And sometimes I feel like that does distract us. These things are rolling around in our head. We've done our preparation, but wait, where's the solo? Wait, when am I singing off the mic because there's a solo? What are the lyrics? The words team is doing their best, but maybe they're a couple beats behind and I haven't seen. What are the lyrics? Now I'm focused, now I'm distracted. I'm still watching. Where's the musical interlude? I know it's coming up here, but I don't remember because it's not exactly like the track. And I'm about to jump in and sing. We've all done it. We've all jumped in. We've all jumped in when it's the interlude. And I think this is even a desire that our vocalists would be able to feel the freedom to sing in full voice, to raise their hands in worship. Back to our book, yada. I think that was to raise the hand. To have a complete freedom, just like what happens when you're in the chairs on a Sunday morning. That is the idea behind some of this idea with our vocalists, the why. Are we aware of even our countenance in worship? Sometimes as vocalists, because of the distraction, we have the deer in the headlights and waiting for the next words, There's something there that's distracting as we model for our church worship. So we're trying to say that matters. And I'll give you a little insider tip from my perspective. I have seen many of our current vocalists who are part of our team on the blue seats on a Sunday, fully engaged. Now, Mark made that comment about the group that was leading in Nashville. And we are not talking about, I know your heart. God knows your heart. God knows your heart. But from what our perspective be, sincere and full hearts of worship, raised hands or closed eyes, singing, fully free, because there's no hampering happening, because now I'm behind a mic. Now I'm leading the church, which we still have a role to lead, mic'd or not, but leading the church. So I'm giving you that. I've seen it, and it's understandable. I get that it's an understandable thing, which is some of the why we're looking to expand this a little bit and change it to give some room there for that freedom and ability to be the people you are as worshipers in the seats, have the same ability to have that freedom on the stage, because I do think that we have a call to model worship, to show with our expression what's in our heart and how to connect with our church, with people who maybe aren't sure. Is this allowed? Is that allowed? So that's some of that on there, how it pertains to our musicians and sound team. I've read these verses to you guys before at workshops, but I have 3 verses that stand out. 1 Chronicles 25, it talks about all the musicians who are skillful and trained in singing to the Lord. Psalm 33, I think it's the psalm that Mark taught on, play skillfully with joy. 2 Chronicles 34, all who were skillful with musical instruments. So we are desiring in some of these changes to create a more unified, more skilled band. Okay? We're looking for better ways to find those who are interested in getting involved as a musician. We are trying to give them a better perspective or better picture of what is expected, how to play what we're playing. Whereas musicians not going to settle for it's good enough. I mean, we should never be doing that across the board, but recognize that our church family deserves more than good enough on a Sunday morning. Our Lord certainly deserves more than this is just good enough. This is the end of the, I got all my good stuff here, it's my leftovers I'll give to God. That's never going to be our heart. And our teammates deserve that we would do more than just good enough. Our teammates who have put in the time deserve that across the board. Our musicians and our sound team would do more than good enough. So we're looking to create a better, more kind of sustainable audition process that includes training for our musicians as needed, training for our sound team as needed, as well as it naturally allows relationships to form. You're going to be spending 3 to 6 months, together working on these things. Over the years, we've grown from a church of 25 to nearly 400. Last week we had 396. And on Christmas and Easter, we're usually over 500. Like I think we had a 600 Sunday once. So we are not going to, I don't believe, ever stop seeing new people come in the doors. At the same time, we're not going to discount the value of our faithful. This is important. It's not a rotation, not a rotating door, but new are coming. And so we have to find better ways to get people involved, better ways, keep tweaking it to help people who come with gifts in music, gifts in sound, willing hearts to do words and all that to get involved. Okay, I think that we aren't doing a terrible job with the audition process. We're not doing a terrible job. I just think we can do better. So some of what we currently do, we'll continue to do. We have a philosophy of worship that's online that we ask new people or people interested in getting involved to read. We still do an evaluation form, and that helps us evaluate where you are, what's your fit. Do you fit with us? What's your experience? What's your salvation experience? We want to know if you're going to minister in spirit and truth, you got to have the Spirit, right? We got to be believers, and that's our church. I know there are many who don't have that same view because that helps them reach those who are lost. That's fine, no stone to throw, but that's our decision on that. So we're going to continue, to develop that. Having them sit in on rehearsals. We're going to talk more about that a little bit more. But there are places that we have kind of run into where the audition process that we have currently used, it's kind of a hard yes or a hard no. And that, I think we can do better with that. I think there's going to be opportunity with some of the changes to make this training and on-ramp opportunity available by expanding a little bit of what we're doing, okay? And that's our heart. So lastly, let me talk a little bit about the sound team. Some of these changes, we have a desire to help our sound team by getting better, and they have been doing an incredible job. And I'm going to stop for a second to say this. None of our sound guys are paid, just like you. None of you are paid. This is volunteer, right? But our sound team can really take a beating. So I'm going to ask you personally to be grace-filled as we interact with our sound team. On a Sunday, when something goes wrong or there's too loud, it was too quiet, and I heard a buzz, nobody comes, well, everybody does come to me, let me take that back, they do tell me, but nobody, immediately they're on the altar for, you screwed up. Of all people, those of us who recognize what goes into the time that is spent, I'm not trying to leave anybody else who might be sitting in other places sound team. We should be the first to recognize their job is really tough. Somebody came Sunday, it was their first day, they're a sound engineer. I don't know if I'm a sound engineer, but that's what they are. It's what put on their visitor card. You know what he said? Great worship, great word. They had a great thing to say about Mark, so he acts like he doesn't get talked about. He does. But you know what they said? As a sound engineer, I just want to say it was a really good job, especially with the room you have to work with. And I thought, and we've had comments, Matt and I have talked a little bit about these fans just blow. That's like a sound man's nightmare. Like, there are issues in this room. We talk about, I don't have a buzz. We don't want a buzz in our ear. We get it, we don't want a buzz in the house. But I'm just taking the side note to just say, these are human beings who are doing a hard job. So it matters how we communicate. It matters that we're kind and grace-filled. But secondarily, they have a big job. And when something is off, we have had helpers who love the Lord, don't get me wrong, but go to the sound booth in the middle of a service to tell them what they're doing wrong and how it should be fixed. But they don't know how to fix it. So we have, you know what I'm saying? So just be careful in how we interact with one another across the board. But especially as it pertains to our sound guys, because they sit in the back, we joke, they have the control. If they don't like what I'm saying, they mute me. You know what I mean? They make us like, went on air as we have to say. But that's the reality, is we practice our craft. We practice, we prepare, we dig in. But they have kind of this thing to carry for the church and the atmosphere and the tone and the levels in the room. So pat them on the back today and tell them thank you if you have not done that lately. So we are working on ways to help our sound guys better control things in the room. So having fewer voices in the mix is going to help. It's going to help the blend. That's part of our issues. We're trying to have less washover from these monitors. We've been working on that for years. Less monitor sound coming out means less washover from the front of the room, okay? We're actually, here's a secret, it's too much money, but we are actually investigating new speakers, mains for the room. And that's happening. I'm calling it out in faith. It's happening, but it's very expensive. So I don't know, because there's budget people who have to make those calls, but that will be a huge help for our sound team, because we have funky things happening in our main speaker. So hold on, because that's coming. This will give them, I think, some of these things that we're doing between our band and between our vocals, help them focus on the main house speakers. At the end of the day, that's the job, right? We all want to hear, I want to hear this, I want to hear a little more of this one. Thank God, we've been able to work these tablets out, and our band can control what we want to hear. And we should be working with a good mix. We'll talk about that later, but we should be working with a good mix, but we don't have to be, I need this, I need this. Their job is the mains. Their job is to serve the church, serve the Lord, serve the church, then serve the team, serve the song. That's part of that as well. So we're looking for ways to help them rather than chasing down individual mic issues, on a given week. So also the band helps the sound team by becoming more consistent. Week to week, instruments that sound the same, that play the same. I'm not talking about individuality and specific tones and whatnot, but playing songs like the record help our sound team. Our sound team will get into all these resources, but our sound team has access to the song links just like all of us. And digging into those things, what am I hearing helps them, what am I recreating in the house? If it's an acoustic day, we've got a different deal, right? We recognize that's different. We've done something different. We hopify songs from time to time. We change, we put a little spin on what we like. We blurred songs together, mashed songs together. Sometimes they're going to sound a little different. But in general, the band can do our part in saying we're trying to replicate what we're hearing consistently. That helps our sound team. We don't have one guy who it's his job and he gets paid and he's doing it week in and week out. Sometimes we go out and pray because you guys come in week to week, you got a different setup, you got a different band, and then you set up, maybe three times ago. So there's a lot that's happening, and we're going to do our part to help serve the sound team, because that's what we do as a family, right? We find the ways to serve one another. So those are some of the kind of whys if that makes sense to you guys. And then we're 5-6 minutes early. So we're actually going to take a break right now, and then we're going to jump into what will it look like? What are the hows of what it will look like? So let's go. I had on your sheet 10:50 to 11. If we could do this 10:45 and just cut it down so we still have 10 minutes, so 10:55. Okay? If we could do that, that might help us move right into lunchtime and all that. And let me just say this, even though I just said a break. Just off the end of that, questions and things in the house we'll get to. But does anybody have a thought or a specific input or feedback that you would share or is burning in you, or maybe you've written down, we'll get to it later, but I don't want to... John?
Just a quick question. We're just listening in, but for people who don't know, is there any way to see who the sound people are, or the musicians, which people?
Yeah, we should do that. I should have all eyes all set at tables today. Raise your hand if you're a sound guy. So Rich, Martin, Chet, Dave, and Eric, and Ashlyn. I'm sorry, I said sound guy. Sound team. Ashlyn, raise your hand. Okay. So that's our gang, and they do a great job. And I actually said to Dave, on Thursday night, this happens, and I fail to send it on. And I heard this concept, I think this idea at the staff retreat, or I think that's where we were, that said, when you are grateful for somebody or thank somebody, thank them, and then thank them again. And if you think you've thanked them enough, thank them again. We don't get enough of that, right? We just don't. And not because, I need to be appreciated, but our world just beats the snot out of us, and people and our family and people we love. And so to hear thank you, great job, that's not hard. It takes a second. So I forget to do it, but I told Dave, and I had a comment, I think it was the last, whenever it was, when he had served. And I hear these comments, good and bad, and here's what I hear often. Not, wow, great voice, great voice. Sometimes I hear that, but whatever. Here's what I hear. Oh my gosh, just the people singing in the church today, and worship, and the atmosphere, and it was just so good. And it just was really able to connect. And that is great job, band. But you know what? We kind of get the great job, because we're up front. Like, I hate to say it that way, but you kind of just naturally, not like, oh, good, but people go, you know how it is. You guys know what I mean. But the sound guys, that's a sound compliment. That's a sound compliment that says, great job. You did a great job. And I think we had a conversation after the Psalm 33 Sunday where we sang at the end. And you know what our sound guy said? I can't remember who was on. I thought it was Dave again that week. I can't remember. And maybe it was Eric. And you guys said, you know how we knew we got it right? Because this was the whole church. And that's it. Now, again, we're not judging across the room. You worship hard enough. But there is something about it not being too quiet and it not being too loud and sitting in that really fat space where we can just lose what's happening and connect. And it's a big job. So thank you, sound guys. And not to diminish everybody else's part. We didn't have our words up because we were like, what are the words? So there's another huge thing that happens there. So let's take right now, I'm going to stop. 10:55, okay? So grab coffee if you need it. Thank you, Tanner. Grab another coffee. There's still a few things out. Hit the back.